Hey, all out there. It's your queen, it's your coach, it's your colleague, it's your correspondent. It is your co-laborer in the gospel. It is your friend. I may be your family if you are watching this at this time. I normally have my, hey, BabyGrands, I see you. I normally have your post separate, but your granny out here in these doctor streets and has a little bit of stuff done, a procedure, and now I'm just struggling through it a bit and couldn't get out. And I tried to get out anyway because, you know, these elements don't determine my life. But then there is something that I decided to draw from Solomon, which is wisdom, because I also, too, ask for you to give consideration when I provide wisdom to you. So all that said, I'm doing one post. I usually do two. You all know what that means. Today is 20. And I'm going to do, this post is going to include what we're going to do to make the sandwich and what the meaning of 20 is. So we are in the 8th month, in the 8th year. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 4, equals 8. And August is month 8. The year 2024, when you add it up, equals 8. So it's year 8. And we are talking to you about every number that's in the middle. And today, that number is 20. It's a really cool number. It's been 10 days since we've had this 0 on the end. And now we are looking at 20, which is a double of 10. And in some cases, it can signify its concentrated meaning. But the significance of 20 seems to be connected to the fact that it's one short of 21. And we know that 21 then gives us that divine 3 of sevens, because 3 times 7 is 21. So since we're looking at these threefold sevens and we're always trying to get to 21, it can cause us to miss the beauty of the 20. And there's a lot of beauty in the 20. 20 is significant. Let's start just with life. God told us that how long would a man live on earth, after he kept asking him the question. And then he finally answered and said 70, 80, if you see fit. So a score is 20 years, which 70 would mean God is saying you'll live till 70, and peradventure I give extra grace to you. You might live to 80, which is 4 scores. And now 80 is pretty young, because the older we get, the younger we become, right? So as we look at this 20, let me tell you a couple of things about 20. 20 years Jacob wanted to get possession of his wives and his property. That's how he didn't want to wait that long, but that is how long he waited, a total of 20 years. There were 20 years that Israel waited for a deliverer from Jabin's oppression. It was 20 years that Israel waited for the deliverance until Samson. It was 20 years that the Ark of the Covenant waited at Kirjath-jearim. It was 20 years that Solomon was waiting for the completion of both the temple and his palace. 20 years that Jerusalem waited between its subjugation and its destruction. And 20 years that Jeremiah prophesied concerning the destruction of Jerusalem. 20. 2 tens, 2 tens, 2 pieces of bread. What kind of sandwich do we make when we have 20? 20 is definitely plenty. 20 is also this atomic number of calcium. Calcium is a very essential element for our health. It is the international dialing code +20 for Egypt, if you're calling Egypt. There are 20 possible moves at the beginning of the game of chess, and you've no doubt heard of or even played the game 20 questions. In Hebrew numbers, the gematria, the letter Kaf refers to the number 20. It's written as a palm shape or an open hand, which people have attributed to the meaning of redemption. The hand shape has been interpreted in two ways. One, giving freely or giving freedom, and two, covering up sin. In the Bible, the number 20 has also become associated with a complete waiting period. You can anticipate that waiting is going to stop and something is going to now happen because you've been waiting. I eaten rams from your flocks. It was like this for 20 years. I was in your household. I worked for you for 14 years, for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flocks. And you did change my wages 10 times. This is Jacob having it out with his uncle Laban, who was his mama's brother. In the book of Judges, the Israelites waited 20 years to be heard from the oppression of King Jabin of Canaan. And it was through Queen Deborah, a woman who was a queen, a judge, and a priest, and a prophetess. She and her husband Barak, God saved his people from this bondage because he had 900 chariots fitted with iron and had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. They cried for the Lord for help. So you can see why that anticipated 21 ends up having as much play as it does, because something has stopped. And usually something has stopped that's been like, oh, please, is it ever going to be over? So then the 21 is more anticipatory. And you all that are 20, how long can a year take before you're 21, right? But enjoy the seconds, 86,400 of them every single day. King Solomon had to wait 20 years until both the temple and his own home were fully constructed. The temple took a total of 70 years, and his home took another 13. At the end of 20 years, then Solomon built these 2 buildings, the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, both and. As a way of thanks to Hiram, the king of the towns, King Solomon gave 20 towns in Galilee to Hiram, who was the king of Tyre. And because Hiram had supplied him with all the cedar and juniper and gold that Solomon wanted, it was not even a big thing for him to give him 20 cities. It is thought that the number 20 appears 228 times in the Bible. However, not all of these are in relation to waiting. But let me give you some of the other examples that are in the Bible concerning 21. Genesis 8:31 in the NIV, Abraham said, "Now that I have been so bold as to speak of the Lord, what if only 20 can be found?" This is this negotiation between Abram and God. He said, "For the sake of 20, I will not destroy the city." But we know Abram, he tried, but Sodom and Gomorrah could not be spared. Judges 15:20, Samson led Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines. In Judges 16:31, thus his brothers and his father's whole family went down to get him. They brought him back and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah, his father. He had led Israel for 20 years. Ezra 3:8, they appointed Levites 20 years old and older to supervise the building of the house of the Lord. So you could get a job building the house of the Lord if you were at age 20. Exodus 30:14 NIV, all who cross over those 20 years old or more are to be given an offering to the Lord. And he killed everybody else. Exodus 26:18, make 20 frames from the south side of the tabernacle. Exodus 26 and 20. For the other side, the north side of the tabernacle, make 20 frames. Exodus 27 and 10. With 20 posts and 20 bronze bases, and with silver books and bands on the posts. We see 20 had a lot to do with the makeup of the temple and the royal castle. Zechariah 5 and 2, he asked me, what do you see? I answered, I see a flying scroll that has 20 cubits long and is 20 cubits wide. Numbers 32 and 11, because they had not followed me wholeheartedly, not one of them, who were 20 years old or more when they came out of Egypt, will see the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And actually, Miriam passed away first. Then Moses was told he was going to die. And then Aaron was told he was going to die and also not see the promised land. So those three siblings and all the work that they did, and we've talked a lot about them, this is a demonstration of the criticality of unity, mercy, grace, and judgment. That God still answers in righteous indignation. He keeps good on his promise. It's a demonstration that we can't just act bad and say, I'm sorry, but not really have that in our heart. And even when we have it in our heart, there are some things that don't go away, even though we've been forgiven of the act. If I punch myself in the face and knock my eye out, I can ask myself to forgive me and God to forgive me. But I might have to live the rest of my life one-eyed. So I'm trying to give you something bizarre enough that you can then think of things yourself. But just incredibly amazing structure-wise. 20 years old, you're not going to make it to the promised land. And that did include Miriam, Moses, and Aaron. Haggai 2 and 6, when anyone came to the heap of 20 measures, there were only 10. When anyone went to a wine vat to draw 50 measures, there were only 20. Ezekiel 4 and 10, weigh out 20 shekels of food and eat each day, and eat it at set times. So as we're making these sandwiches, hopefully you're finding a set time to eat because of the chewing digestive process that we're also capitalizing on as we are strengthening our spiritual muscle this month. So 20 has plenty in the Bible. The book of Hebrews has 20 different names or titles of Jesus Christ. See if you can find those. In the far south of the district of Lincolnshire of the UK lies the hamlet of 20. A hamlet is defined as being either a small or very small human settlement. 20 is so small that there's no official record of how many people live there. The Wikipedia page for a complete, utterly insignificant hamlet called 20 Lincolnshire is longer than the entire Wikipedia entry for the number 20. We look at number 20, a couple more things. Let me tell you real quick here, and then we're gonna make our sandwich. It was only the last part. Okay, so 20, sometimes called score, particularly in older English, talked about that atomic number of calcium. We do need calcium. You see it predominantly in milk. Calcium is another one of those salt groups, so you should always be watching your calcium chloride. They should have some balance, and your potassium, especially from a hypertension standpoint. And it is a metal. It's alkaline in nature. Most people are familiar saying milk is fortified with it. If someone has 20/20 vision, it means that they have perfect eyesight. The idea behind that is that if you can read a specific set of letters on a chart at a distance of 20 feet, then your vision couldn't get any better. Although the metric equivalent of this would be 6'6", with perfect vision at 6 meters, Most countries that use the metric system will still refer to eyesight as perfect eyesight of being 20/20. If you are only good at seeing what happened after it happened, then you're considered to have 20/20 hindsight, meaning hindsight is always 20/20 once we can look back. Well, now we don't have to strain to see it because we can say what it is. Well, yeah, okay. You can read it right now because it's already done. 20 is something different altogether. Even though it sounds the same out loud, it actually refers to a specific variation of a game of cricket where each team is only allowed to play for 20 overs in total. 20/20. It's spelled and then the number following. According to developmental psychology, we're not adults until we reach the age of 20. Developmental psychology. Y'all hear me say that? Developmental psychology. That's who said that. Developmental psychology is a form of science and study how and why we change throughout the lives. I have studied developmental science and psychology. Here, I'm just giving you a fact. The age of majority, which is the age one legally becomes an adult, used to be 20 in Japan. In 2018, it was changed, and now it's 18. So ever since 2018, it's been a little thing in Japan because now you're grown when you're 18 instead of 20. And we will see how that matriculates outside of their borders into the other Western world. We'll see. If you want to call anybody in Egypt, don't forget the number 20. When you call, you have to dial +20 before dialing the number. Prepare for an absolute shocker on this fact. The game 20 questions. There are, in fact, 20 questions. Have you ever picked up a Rubik's Cube and struggled away at it after hours of ends of not getting it where all colors match? It turns out that a Rubik's Cube can always be solved in 20 moves or less, no matter how mixed up it is. In the 16th century, a Hungarian king called Matthias Corvinus declared that one every 20 households was required to furnish his army with a fully armed soldier and a horse. The Hungarian war is 20 and is Hus, H-U-S-Z, and these soldiers on horseback became known as Hussars. There are a total of 20 different possible moves that you can make legally at the beginning of the game chess. In Australian rules of football, a game is made up of 4 20-minute quarters. In the United States, college basketball is governed by a few different organizations, but under NCAA basketball rules, a game can be made up of 2 20-minute halves. Ice hockey rules, on the other hand, stipulate 3 20-minute thirds. The 20th wedding anniversary is referred to as a China anniversary. It's a tradition of a China anniversary to give your husband or wife something made from China on that 20th anniversary. A shape with 20 sides or faces is called an icosahedron. Every face of a icosahedron means it's an equilateral triangle. I know you've been wanting to know that. You can get it right on the test now. Now you know. The UK 20 euros banknote has a picture of Adam Smith on it. Adam Smith was a famous philosopher, economist, and writer. On February 20th, 2020, the paper Euro 20 note was replaced by a polymer note. Huge change. In the far south, in the district of Lincolnshire, United Kingdom, lies the hamlet of 20. I talked about this earlier. A hamlet is defined as being either a small or very small human settlement. 20 is so small that there is no official record of how many people actually can live there. So when we look at 20, the Wikipedia page for a complete and utterly insignificant hamlet, when we look at that, and we look at Wikipedia to find that Lincolnshire is longer than the entire Wikipedia entry for 20 in the number. So 20. Now what? Now let's make a sandwich. So we have welcome to the future. Today is yesterday's tomorrow. I told you yesterday that I would see you tomorrow, and that when I did, it would be today. Well, this is that. So welcome to now, which is a perpetual, perfect, present tense that time allows us to break up in various components. The one I like to focus on is seconds, because there are 86,400 of them a day. And God is so just and so amazing that all of us who are alive have been given that. And now we can spend it. And spend it we should, because we don't get it back. Tomorrow you don't get a new 86,400 to add to yesterday's 86,400. So it is a limited, depleting, descending, decisional process. How you going to spend your money? Because, we don't call time money. Actually, the time machine was invented here in Wisconsin, in Brown Deer. Take your money anywhere. That's what a time machine, that's what it meant. And now where they're called ATMs now. But the greatest, most expensive commodity that we have is the one that comes from our Creator, and that is time. And time that's spent will be no more, is a true saying. So in this 8th month, in this 8th year, we are now moving not only to double digits, but today, a complete 20. A second set of 10 has been completed. High five yourself. A second set of 10 has been completed. So what are we going to do? We always have a piece of bread that begins new. Then we put the number of the month in the middle, and then the end piece of bread that represents new beginning, because we're always springboarding into tomorrow, which once we arrive, it'll be today. But what do I want you to do in your 20 sandwich? This is a little different. I want you to decide what 10 things you've completed this month. 10 things that you've completed. And I want you to spread the beginning new, because you have. 10 things that you have completed that you thought you couldn't get done. Take the time to think about them and spread them on that first piece of bread. I don't care what kind of bread it is, focaccia, cinnamon, raisin, hibachi, don't matter. It's hibachi or bread. Anyway, spread 10 accomplishments on begin new bread. On your back piece of bread, new beginning, whether it's wrap or part of a cinnamon roll or white or wheat or rye, whatever, you're going to spread that with 10 things that you want to complete still this month. 10 things that you have completed, spread your first piece of bread. 10 things that you want to complete, your second piece of bread. That gives us 20. And in the middle, I'm going to ask you to do something we haven't done before. Because it's a complete and it's anticipating, turning 21 is such an anticipatory number. However, one of great completion. The meat in the middle, I want you to find, I was going to say 20, but okay. Let's find 8. 8 scriptures from a book that has an 8th chapter. Because there's more than 8 that have 8 chapters. So does Genesis have more than 8? Yes. So then if you choose Genesis, then that means I want you to include in your meat whatever. Let's see. I ain't gonna try. Let's see what Genesis 8:1 says. Genesis 8:1 says, the waters continued to recede until the 10th month. And on the first day of the 10th month, the top of the mountains became visible. That is a book in the Bible that has at least 8 chapters. And the meat that we're going to use is the first verse of the 8th chapter. Because that's giving us acknowledgement of the 8. But it's also springboarding us from 20 to 21. Now, this is a really, really special thing. And there are things that are going to be happening with you all just by simply doing this. You're going to find 10 books that have at least 8 chapters. And you're going to spread your sandwich with the first verse of that 8th chapter. So you're going to end up with 10 verses in the middle because we're recognizing the completion, but we're doing verse 1 to propel us into 21. We have 8 with this new beginning, so it's helping us. We need some fluidity because this is a little harder of an exercise. 10 things you've completed because it's the 20th. 10 things you want to complete before we get to the 30th. And 1 scripture from 8 different books of the Bible that have a chapter 8. And you're going to read that chapter 8, verse 1, and that's going to be some bread. Chapter 8, verse 1, that's going to be the next piece on your bread. Chapter 8, verse 1, third piece of meat on your bread. So, why are we doing the 8 and the 1? Because we're in the 8th month, in the 8th year, and we've completed 2 cycles. And so we're going to springboard that perfect beginning number by adding the 1, because we know when it gets to 21, then we're at 3 sevens. Now we're at another divine thing. So I hope that I have made that reasonable, because we should have a really good sandwich. Remember to chew. Chew at least 33 times, because that helps us mastication indigestion, digestion. So ingestion, the reason you get indigestion is because ingestion starts before digestion starts before ingestion ends, and then you get indigestion. So we don't want indigestion, but we do want you to eat and chew and chew and eat, because this month is leaving fast. And now that we're at this perfect completeness of 10, and you know what it means, and you know how you want to make your sandwich, I'm really making you look at how great you are. You've done more than 10 wonderful things in the 20 days that we've doing this. I know you have a list of things that you still want to complete, at least 10 of them. I know you do. And that's why you're going to have to go to the Word. And you're going to have to find at least 8 books that have at least 8 chapters and read that first verse. And that's going to be the meat that's on the inside. We're going to chew it at least 33 times so we have no bloating and we have no issues, because 21 is coming. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, Baby Grand, and all your keys and the world. Publicly, privately, I am she. I am your queen, Dr. Brenda Bowers, your coach, your colleague, your friend, your co-laborer, your prophetess, your fivefold ministry leader. You're no shame in her game anymore because you got more game than she got, and she ain't shame of yours, so don't you be shame of yours. She not ashamed of hers, so don't you be ashamed of yours. We doing what we do out here in these knowledge-based streets, and that is share, care, every time we become aware. So when we become aware of something that's going to advance our society into a positive direction, that's going to help us to be world changers and difference makers, then we're going to share once we become aware. Because truly, that's how we demonstrate that we care. Keep praying for me. I pray to be back out on the track tomorrow. But until forever, whenever I see you, I'm going to be looking for you tomorrow. Just remember that when we get there, it's going to be today. Because today is always yesterday's tomorrow. Spend those 86,400 seconds. If you can, use 8 hours worth and get you a good sleep. Rest. You've completed. Breathe. Until forever. It's always Agape and Shalom.